it's hard to ignore the fact that, yes, 2025 is the year where we are starting to see crypto get regulated completely. Now, the biggest thing to focus on here is clarity for the entire crypto space. And the biggest thing about this is this all started to really become a focus this year. Once we witnessed a new admin enter the office, we saw crypto get put on center stage, specifically regulating crypto in a positive way that's not going to stifle innovation and that's going to allow for these big players in this space, like for example, Ripple, to get the green light to expand and become much larger than they ever were. Now, going off of this article back in August, we have SEC to focus on clear crypto regulations after the Ripple case. This is coming from Atkins, and we slightly talked about this, right? Like, we were addressing this. We have here Commissioner Pierce is right. With this chapter closed, we now have an opportunity to shift our energy from the courtroom to the policy drafting table. Our focus should be on building a clear regulatory framework that fosters innovation while protecting investors. Project Crypto. Now, the number one thing that I'm focused on here with crypto regulations is some of these companies like Ripple have been ahead of the curve for so long. I mean, listen, they have been focused on public policy for years and years and years. They always wanted to be compliant. They always wanted to work with regulators. And the issue here is that they never were given the opportunity to, because I don't know if you guys have been following this space for quite some time. A lot of you are probably newer to the space, which is okay. But going back into like 2020 and prior, right? Getting a meeting with the SEC, it wasn't that challenging. Like, you could get a meeting with the SEC. The issue is that these companies like Ripple would go in, have a meeting, and then they would get absolutely zero information back from the SEC or any guidance on how to be compliant with regulations that are currently in place, which, by the way, we had none. And essentially what the SEC would do is utilize that information that these companies gave them as a weapon against them so that they could get, they could essentially shake them down. It was kind of like the mob, right? They would utilize the information, they would bully them, and then they would say, well, if you want to continue operating, you need to pay us a fine. That's how the SEC was operating prior to 2025. And today, we know that this has completely changed. And Ripple has always been trying to work with the SEC, and now we could start to see this become a reality. But the biggest thing that we're focused on is this is the framework for a market structure bill. Now, the reason why we are so focused on this is because this is full-on clarity for crypto. This is that bill that will unlock the crypto space in a huge way. Enterprise-grade adoption, institutional-grade adoption, all leading to mass retail adoption. This is how we get there. We need to have a framework in place. Now, in this breakdown, we do have a full breakdown of exactly what the market structure legislation does. Why we need it? Well, the US financial markets are widely recognized as the most robust, transparent, and efficient markets in the world. They have served as a vital engine for economic growth, innovation, and wealth creation for Americans for decades. Our markets are underpinned by a regulatory framework grounded in the principle that the nature of an activity determines the rules that apply. This approach has served US markets through generations of technological innovation, from the emergence of electronic trading to the rise of complex derivatives. Now, again, without that regulatory framework, we would not have the type of growth that we have within these markets. So when we look at market structure legislation for crypto, that's the key. That's the key that unlocks multiples of trillions of dollars to enter the space, get tokenized. These public blockchains will start to see mass adoption, but we don't get there without legislation. And when we're looking at this, right, this market structure bill, and I'm just going to go off of, just a few of these things, it will close regulatory gaps. It will create clarity for digital asset businesses and consumers. It will incorporate digital asset platforms into the regulatory framework. It will address new opportunities and risks created by digital assets. And then on top of that, this will promote efficient markets, provide clear, predictable rules to market participants, address the same kinds of risks with the same kinds of regulation, protect financial privacy while denying bad actors access to the financial system, and protect investors and consumers while ensuring oversight and enforcement against corruption, fraud, and misconduct. So again, this is exactly why we are focused on this. Now, do we have any updates with this market structure legislation? Well, yeah. In fact, by the end of this video, you will know that we do have a timeline now on this. Now, over here, we do have from the Financial Services GOP. This goes back to September 8th. The Clarity Act provides the necessary tools to establish a federal framework for digital asset market structure. It's critical the Senate passes this bill to ensure the U.S. remains the leader in digital finance. Tom Emmer did put out a post on the 7th, which did get quoted by the Financial Services GOP, which was reminder the Senate must finish the job on America's pro-crypto future and pass the Clarity Act. Monica Long just recently had a big meeting. We have here, blockchain is a financial revolution, but has far from reached its potential, assimilating into existing infrastructure, mostly held back by legal uncertainty in the largest economy in the world. The good news is that this is all rapidly changing. First the Genius Act, then Clarity, and now the Responsible Financial Innovation Act taking shape in the Senate. It's incredible to see the outreach from lawmakers to our industry to listen to practical applications with a commitment to write good laws that will protect consumers, foster innovation, and flex with time. Thank you for your leadership on RFIA. She did tag the individuals around this during today's roundtable in DC. And yes, she was at this roundtable. We'll talk about this a little bit more. We look forward to seeing crypto market structure written into law with bipartisan support that will set the stage for U.S. leadership in this blockchain revolution. And this is just the image that went along with this. Now, Charles Hoskinson, we have great meeting today. XRP Nation, the Ripple folks did really well, as did A16Z. A lot more work to do, but great progress is being made on bipartisan legislation being passed this year. We did get an update from Eleanor Tourette saying new, following up on my tweet last night about the banking GOP roundtable that was held this morning, in addition to Charles, Hoskinson, Ripple, and A16Z. I'm told representatives from Kraken, Coinbase, Multicoin, Paradigm, and Circle were also in attendance. Meeting lasted about an hour and a half and focused on refining language in the market structure draft. This is why this legislation is so important, because it's not just individuals around, the traditional world of finance. This was the biggest issue with the SEC. They did not want to hear anything about crypto from crypto-based companies. They were applying traditional financial law to crypto, and they thought that it would work. This is why when we look at what's happening here, it's a completely different story. We are now starting to see big players from the space like Ripple, A16Z, Kraken, Coinbase, Multicoin, Paradigm, Circle, Cardano. All of these players are now sitting here in attendance for over an hour, refining the language in this bill. This means that we are starting to see comment from players in this space that will make sure that innovation thrives. Make sure that we are not seeing, crypto essentially held back because of, terrible structure around these bills. Because before, a lot of these bills around crypto, there was always hidden language in there that completely tried to kill something. Like, for an example, DeFi back in 2023. Over the years, there's always been, this concern that we're going to see this space shadow regulated into oblivion. But again, now that we're seeing comments from players from the space, it's a very good sign. Now, we also did hear from Brian Armstrong from Coinbase. I was in DC the last few days working to get market structure legislation passed for crypto. This is how we ensure the crypto industry can be built here in America, driving innovation and protecting consumers and making sure we never have another Gary Gensler trying to take your rights. There is strong bipartisan support, but we need your help to get it done. You could help by signing up for Stand With Crypto. They'll notify you when it's time to contact your representatives. Check this out real quick. It's about a minute long.
Hey everyone, I'm here in Washington, D.C. again, fighting for your rights to try to get some market structure legislation passed for crypto. This would be foundational, just like we did for stablecoins a few months ago with the Genius Act. Market structure legislation protects all the other non-stablecoin crypto assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum. The Senate is strongly supportive of getting this done. The members that I met with on both sides of the aisle are ready to get this legislation passed, and there's draft text now being exchanged back and forth and with the industry for comment, which is great. We saw a lot of alignment today. Now, of course, this hasn't stopped the big banks from trying to throw a wrench into things, and they're trying to ban rewards on stablecoins. The members of the Senate who I spoke to, they're not going to let that happen. That was already litigated and decided in the Genius Act for stablecoins. They're not going to bring it up again. But barring these little details here and there, I think this thing has a good chance of getting done. I've actually never been more bullish on a market structure getting passed. It's a freight train leaving the station. So we're going to keep showing up and fighting for your rights. You can do a lot to help by going to standwithcrypto.org and contacting your representatives. Let them know that you want to see market structure legislation passed for crypto.
So all of these leaders from the space are very confident now that this is going to be getting passed soon. And just like he said, this is a freight train leaving the station, because it really is. This is going to be one of the biggest moments for crypto. Now, we also heard over here from Megan. She put out a great post. This is from CNBC. The push for crypto legislation. We now have the time frame in front of us, October to November. By the end of this year, we should have market structure legislation signed into law. Check this out.
Financial Services Committee Chairman French Hill is calling for crypto market structure legislation to be passed into law before the U.S. loses ground to Latin America and Europe. Chairman Hill joins us this morning. Mr. Chairman, it's good to see you. And I would ask you, what are you asking for? But all you got to say is you're asking for what's in that bill that the Senate is sitting on, right? There's a bill ready to go that would accomplish what you're asking for.
You bet, Joe. Good morning. Great to be with you. Happy 30th anniversary to the Squawk.
Thank you.
Glad to be on. Exactly right. We passed in the House in July the Clarity Act, which got 78 Democratic votes, meaning we had a strong bipartisan vote over the suspension of vote level in the House, meaning more than 290 members came together to vote for the Clarity Act, which is that market framework which will make America the most competitive digital asset nation in the world when you combine it with the Genius Act that President Trump signed into law in July, which is the dollar-backed payment stablecoin legislation.
And you are somewhat gratified with what the Trump administration has done. There's been some progress, obviously, with the Genius Act, but what I didn't realize was how more advanced, is that the right word, for crypto use in the economy is in South America. And maybe even in Europe, in terms of legislation, where we're definitely ahead with liquidity, and we've had some good IPOs, but we're lagging without this structure in place.
That's right. We can't be competitive and lead the nation in fintech if we don't have this market framework. I told President Trump back in July that if you sign the Genius Act and you pass it, it's like passing a bill that authorizes the use of a cell phone, but you have no cell towers. You don't have the rules for custody, for dealing, for exchanging, for serving as a trader, for how you're going to actually operate a blockchain network inside the financial services industry. So we need both. They're both essential. And as you point out, the Senate is now considering the Clarity Act under Tim Scott's leadership in the Banking Committee and John Boozman's leadership in the House of the Senate Ag Committee. And we hope that they will take prompt action on that this fall during the October and November timeframe. I'd love to see the Clarity Act pass the Senate before the end of the year.
Why is it? What's the problem? Who would bring it up and vote? Is that John Thune, Senator Thune, or what? Why? I don't understand why Republicans can't do this if they have a majority.
Well, it's being worked on. Kirsten Gillibrand in New York and Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming. Cynthia is the chair of the Subcommittee on Digital Assets, FinTech in the Senate. It's been referred to her committee. They've had a hearing. She has her own legislative ideas that are being discussed with both Republicans and Democrats in the Senate. So I do expect them to mark that bill up in the coming weeks. And I hope they'll use the Clarity Act that got 78 votes from Democrats in the House as their base text for passing their own bill.
So yeah, I mean, listen, the time frame here is sometime around October into November to get this fully drafted up, and it should start to get some movement and traction around it. This is very similar to how the Genius Act got passed into law as well. We started to see these heavy discussions heating up. We got a time frame. It started to move a little bit faster, and we got the official approval a lot quicker than what we were really kind of betting on, which was sometime around like the end of summer. Now with this one, I would argue that it's going to take a little bit more time simply because it's not something based around a specific category in crypto, like for example, stablecoins. So I would say we should have this fully drafted up end of October, going into November, probably by, we have some holidays in between, November, December, but I would say give or take end of November, maybe first half of December, we should have this fully passed through. So we should have crypto fully regulated by the end of this year. That's my guess here, but we are starting to see a lot of movement around this. This is going to be that big moment, that big obstacle that finally gets removed, and there's nothing in front of us after that. There's nothing slowing crypto down. So I want you guys to understand that once we get this crypto legislation signed into law, prepare for significant adoption, significant growth. We will start to see utility become a focus. This is how we get there. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, notifications on because I'm free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.